Hey, everybody. Welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and publisher at Autonomy Global. We are in a month dedicated to the theme of AI and data. And I got to tell you, first of all, thanks to Victus Technologies. They're the sponsor this month. But I also have to tell you that I just came fresh off of Geo Week, and it is always all about the data, and AI took center stage this year, just as it did at CES, no surprise. And today we have two amazing guests with us from North Dakota who braved about a foot of snow to join us today, who are going to be talking about this AI collaboration they're doing together and with the Hive and the community writ large. So we've got Garett, Elwood, and Johnny Ryan with us today from the Hive and from Buffalo3. And we're going to get into both, but welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. By the way, everybody, go ahead, Johnny. I'm sorry.
I said I'm not a newbie anymore. Second show.
No, that's a great point. Johnny is not a newbie. In fact, this is his second guest appearance on what we're calling the Grand Sky Innovation in Aerospace series. He was on the show last year in the fall, and if you guys missed that, go check it out. We also had a great article about the Hive on Autonomy Global, so you can read all about it as well. But we're kicking off this year's series for Grand Sky with these guys, and super excited to have you back, Johnny, and Garett, to have you for the first time. So, yeah. So let's start with Garett. Garett, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
My name's Garett Elwood. I studied at Arizona State University. I studied information security and artificial intelligence. I moved up here to North Dakota in May. I met up with Johnny in about June. We really hit it off. We started working together, and now I'm here with this and doing a lot of cool things with artificial intelligence and software.
Wow. So you really are a newbie, not just to this show, but to North Dakota and everything happening up there. So I'm really excited to hear your perspective. Johnny, you've been around the block there. And like I said, you've been on the show before. Give everybody just kind of that 30-second elevator bio for yourself.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it constantly changes, but my background is software, hardware development, any type of tinkering into, from iOS apps to automated drone in a box systems, building it kind of the first version all the way through kind of to proof of concept. Now every conversation, like you've obviously imagined, leads to AI, which is, we definitely saw it coming, but now, everybody's talking AI. It's like your mom, your grandma, everybody. I mean, it's 10x every single week. There's so many opportunities in AI. I just think, you think you're not going to be the one talking about AI like this, but then you just become it. And it's, every single thing is, well, how could we do that with AI? And now people are just getting just a crash course in like technology as a whole, Don, where like, you think you don't understand AI, you don't, know what it is. And as you start to scratch the surface, you realize, okay, a lot of people know a lot more about just the basic concepts of AI, like the original, like autocomplete when you're in Google Maps to like you're guessing what the next keystroke is. I mean, essentially that's AI at its basic level of, what are the most likely next actions you would make. And so it is something that people have been familiar with for a long time. They just don't really give themselves credit. And now people are, getting way more technical than they give themselves credit for. And it's exciting because there's unlimited opportunities. I think the really cool part is now you can get the technology in your hands, and Dawn of Autonomy can basically consume data that you feel comfortable with that isn't hitting the internet, and have some insights that about yourself that is like, how do you want to run this show? How does your P3 consulting work, or what are advantages you could have that don't necessarily even hit the cloud that can enable you to do more? That's kind of what Garett and I see in Buffalo3, and there's so much overlap between Hive, Buffalo3, companies that want to have whiteboard an idea out and see like, what would it take to build this? Most of the time it's like, oh yeah, Garett and I already have this demo working by the end of the meeting. Like it's just wild. The speed that you can move is very wild.
Absolutely. So a lot to unpack there. And we're certainly going to dive deep into AI and data and everything you guys are doing. But before we do that, for those that didn't get to see you before, Johnny, or don't know a lot about the Hive, why don't you just tell them a little bit about what the Hive is? And then I'm going to go to Garett to talk a little bit about this Buffalo3 collaboration you guys have going on. So let's go Hive first, Johnny.
Sure. So for those who don't know, the Hive is a UAS-focused, kind of autonomy-focused tech accelerator. We've been around for 3 years now, have over 35 companies that have some monthly commitment to our building, whether that's their entire company operates out of here, or this is their North Dakota headquarters for a larger global company or larger, U.S. presence. And so we try to enable, companies that have the same mission of enabling the Air Force, some private, public opportunities, but we just try to be the enabler of all types of UAS opportunities. So,
yeah, and so much going on there. I've had the opportunity to visit there. I'm looking forward to coming out again in October every year, folks. If you're not tapped into the UAS Summit and Expo, really great event every year up there in North Dakota. I hope to come out this year again. So Garett, Buffalo3, what is Buffalo3? Tell us all about it and why you guys created it.
So Buffalo3, it's like an AI and software development venture that Johnny and I started along with another member. It's us three. We got together, we decided two young guys with some skills and we really want to work really hard. And then a leader like Johnny that's been in the space for a very long time. He's very well seasoned. He's a great person to work with. We decided to get together and decide what we can do. And now we're working with some oil and gas stuff. Among some other things too that I'm not sure if I should mention on here, but that's kind of how all that got started. But I really enjoy what we do every day. We work out of the Hive too, which also enables us to get in front of a lot of other things. It's more opportunities for our business.
All right, very cool. Well, first of all, I love the Hive in the background Johnny's got right there. The Buffalo3 logo is cool. I'm going off script completely. I don't know if there's a story behind that name. But if there is, I'd love to know why Buffalo3, because people create these names for their companies, and sometimes they're not always obvious. So I don't know if that's something you guys want to share, but in terms of the origin story and the meaning behind that.
Johnny, go ahead and tell that.
Yeah, after being in so many tech companies, you find that you get kind of name paralysis. You're thinking of the perfect name. It doesn't need to be perfect, obviously, but we were going back and forth of we need to start this venture. We need to make it official. We have so many things we're working on. And there are three of us. Jacob Hansen's our other co-founder, along with Garett and myself. And so we were sitting there at the Red Pepper, which I'm not sure if you've been there yet, Don. If you haven't, I'll take you there. Kind of a staple, hole in the wall, Tex-Mex place. We were thinking, one, there's just so many names you can't take because something else that isn't AI related already it takes it. So, the open up that. But being from North Dakota, all three of us, that's important to us, kind of the fabric of our kind of being, and so we're thinking I was thinking, what's something that we're not going to get sick of ever? And, a buffalo, if you're from North Dakota, if you hate a buffalo or a bison, obviously there's the different school drivers and that, but if the buffalo doesn't mean something to you and you're from North Dakota, that's a name that you just won't get sick of. And so there's three of us. And so it popped up in my head of why don't we just be the Buffalo3? And really behind that message too was the stuff that we're going after is difficult. It's, they're difficult challenges, but with a buffalo, it's it goes right into the storm. That's kind of our mentality of go right at the problem, right in the middle and just come out with solutions. And so that's how Buffalo3 started.
I love it. I don't know if you saw Titan Protection did a drone in the box riff off of a different one, right? From Saturday Night Live. They did a video. It was hilarious. So I'm going to date myself here, but Nana Cherry, she was a UK artist from the 80s, did a song called Buffalo Stance. So I'm looking forward to the video you guys put out of Buffalo Stance. Just throwing that out there. It'll be marketing gold. Okay.
What you wish for.
Moving on. Okay, so how did you guys wind up, kind of building AI products with Buffalo3 and at the Hive? Like you said, Johnny, AI is everywhere, is pervasive. You may not even know you're using it, right? But you do every day. Why did you guys decide, and obviously Garett came to you with this educational background in AI, but why did you decide to build AI products and why specifically at the Hive?
Yeah, so my background, my company, just lone wolf software hardware consulting for the last 15 years. Aside from the Hive, that's with my clients and existing kind of technology. It was kind of just the perfect meeting point of Garett and Jacob, where I'm coming from code from scratch, everything, like hand built, if you want to call it that, just like raw coding libraries, up to the point of where I see AI and where I use it. And then they're coming from the other side of that of look what you can build in one day. And so both of our perspectives, me knowing, what frameworks and languages are so stable, so consistent, just the gold standard on the internet, mixed with, wow, how can you build that in one day? That was kind of the perfect kind of joining of ventures. And I basically said, hey, my gut is telling me like everything that I already have with my clients in that, let's just merge this all together. I mean, I don't even think within the first 2 months, I don't even think I went and looked at any of Garett's code or Jacob. I just knew like they had the spark that I had when I first started at Rocket Space in San Francisco, where like you would do this for free on the weekend. Obviously, you need to get paid, but you would do this for free because you love it so much. And so that really keeps both of us fresh, all three of us fresh. I can kind of poke a hole in why these new AI tools will or won't work, what problems and technical debt they'll create. And they can see it from a different perspective of look at these 5 tools that came out overnight that might be groundbreaking. And that's a really good balance for like, the future of just developing technology. And then separately, I don't think we mentioned it yet. So I started when Tom and I took over with our new management of the Hive, I created like the Stingers, which is our new kind of cover everything we need. It's front door, it's things like that. It's helping out when people come to town like yourself, Don, but it's also like, hey, maybe someone needs some technical, kind of idea session. And so Garett and Jacob, my partners, are also Stingers of the Hive. So there's a lot of overlap. It works. It really works. And what's nice is, let's say you're in town, Don, for the summit and me, you, Kevin, Tom Sawyer, a group gets together. We could have some ideas and we could make some pretty like intense proof of concepts happen by the next day, And
wow. So Johnny, this Stinger concept for the Hive, and I know Garett's one of them and your other partner, is this like a title? Let me give you an analogy and you tell me if I'm hitting the mark or not. Like for Autonomy Global, as an example, I have a number of people that write for me, over 20 people, and I call them my ambassadors. So the AG Ambassadors Program. Is Stingers kind of akin to that, where you have designated people that essentially kind of rep the Hive brand and people can work with them to curate ideas and come up with projects together?
A little bit. I think that's actually a great idea to expand on it, but we have the Stingers basically cover anything that's possibly needed. So however we can elevate the experience for one of our members or potential members or mission related folks that come in, whatever that is, it tends to be more technical stuff now because we have that ability with Garett and Jacob and others. But it could be like they need to figure out how are they going to get this event quickly, last minute with a caterer, event. How are we going to do some technical stuff? We had Senator Hoeven here on Monday for some exciting announcements. And
Awesome.
And we started getting into this projection mapping obsession that I had about just making really interactive spaces. And so I just kind of let Garett loose with our old projector that we had and said, hey, here's kind of what I'm thinking. Let's get some Hive honeycomb shapes, but let's have, global hawks flying behind them with American flags. And so we kind of, those are things that we could do day of when we have technical folks that are here working for the Hive, but also have their own companies.
Okay.
It really aligns with the incentives of everybody, and then hopefully, more of our members will see like, hey, you could tap into these guys potentially, Garett and Jacob and myself in a silo where maybe you don't have to shift your whole 6-month engineering, focus, but maybe you just want to really test out some concept for a couple of days. This is maybe a safer way to do that versus a whole shift.
So they're almost like consultants, if you will, that, kind of affiliated with the Hive that you've designated that, your partners can leverage for anything from event planning to actual technical issues. That's super cool. I love that issue. I love that concept. My ambassadors are just, they're people that write for me. They also go out, represent us. They go to different events and, do coverage and things like that, but it's all kind of more on the media side. But Garett, I want to go to you and talk a little bit more. Johnny kind of started our conversation about AI, what it is, the different meanings of it, in your world, and like what you're doing with Buffalo3 and at the Hive. What is that nexus of AI and data? Again, you don't have to reveal state secrets here, proprietary information, like what clients you're working with, but could you kind of at a high level talk about the types of AI that you're working on, and let's just call it the different market use cases, if you will, in terms of data that you're processing maybe with that AI, the different AI?
Yeah. So I guess for the oil and gas industry, we do like object detection things. So it's like you'd have a camera on a site, maybe on a drone or a fixed camera, and it would go through and it would detect things on the site that would want to be detected for any
Yeah.
sort of reason. We could also work with some like local LLM stuff. So all that is you get a very nice computer with a good GPU or good unified memory if you're using a Mac. And basically, the selling point on that is nothing is going to hit the internet when you have this local model on your computer. Nothing will hit the internet. We fine tune it for your specific use case. And that's with the people that we work with, that's their their highest concern is the stuff not hitting the internet, being very private, and it's the most private thing you can do. You could literally turn the internet off on the computer and it would still work. So those are the two biggest, like I would say, use cases we work with.
Yep.
I could get into more technical details too, but yeah.
No, that sounds great. And, I was just actually talking to Dahlia, my content and production manager, about, I guess, how all these AI agents wound up collaborating in some Pinterest-like site, and they're all talking to each other. I mean, it's like mind-blowing what is happening out there right now. It's crazy. Okay, Garrett, I'm going to ask you about this, and tell me about Claudebot.
Oh,
What is
yeah, I could talk
Claudebot?
about Claudebot for a long time, but it's this guy that this Claudebot. So this came out probably about a month and a half ago. It was called Claudebot when it first came out. The creator of it got a cease and desist order from Anthropic. This just created Claude AI, which is an AI model you can use, the cloud model.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Change it to Moltbot. He didn't like the name. He changed it to OpenClaw, which I think makes a lot of sense. It's an open source thing. You can all you do is go to opencloud.ai.com. You go to it, you can download it, you run some terminal commands, and then you now have this almost like agentic AI that goes on your computer, and whatever you give it access to, it can manage for you, and it does it fairly well, it's pretty incredible. You can either, like how I talked about earlier, you can hook up a cloud provider model, so like an OpenAI model, an Anthropic model, a Google model. You can hook it up to that, and you can pay that for their compute. Or, like I was talking about earlier, you can have a very good computer with a lot of computing power, and you can run a local model to it too. So the only thing you're really paying for is the power you're using to run the computer, which is like almost nothing. And there's a lot of cool things that can be done with it. But I would like say, if anyone's like listening, if you don't know what you're doing, just be very cautious. Like the things you can open it up to on the internet are pretty crazy. But yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. They made their own like social media. They all talk to each other. They kind of like talk crap about humans. It's kind of funny.
Wow. And it's called what? What's it called?
OpenClaw.
Open, how do you spell it? Oh, CLAWD.
Yeah. Oh, just OpenClaw now.
Oh, open claw, like the claw.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. I got you. Okay. All right. Wow, that's wild. I mean, look, I went to CES, and like I talked about in the beginning, everything's AI. I went to that Lenovo keynote. It was, in my opinion, it was downright frightening. This kind of agentic AI, and this, you can give it access. You can wear a little pendant, and it'll hoover in everything you see and hear in a given day, and then it's going to like link up to your ring, right? If you have one of those rings, and then it's going to link up to your Lenovo computer. It's going to link up to your Motorola phone, and all of these things, and just suggest things for you, like in your life, or whatever it is. Oh, you forgot your doctor's. It's time to make that colonoscopy appointment. It's just like, but like with you guys and what you're doing with autonomy and autonomous vehicles, let's bring it to that. Let's bring it to drones. And you said oil and gas and some of these industries. And again, at Geo Week, this was a big topic of conversation. Look, everybody's figured out how to collect the data. Let's be frank. It took a while, right? But drones, people are getting it. They're using them everywhere, right? Whether it's, what, it doesn't matter what kind of drone, but like also, ground, surface, subsurface, obviously aerial, and the water based ones, whether those are on the surface or subsurface. So you're seeing all of this data being collected. And that's just on the, let's say, drone and robotics side. Of course, then you have synthetic aperture radar, things coming from satellites in space, everything. So much data, right? I think people have cracked that nut. Now the question is, what do I do with it? Because and not only what do I do with it, there's like two parts to this. What do I do with it in a way that I'm not like reinventing the wheel? In other words, say, Johnny, you guys at Buffalo3 are working on something, but another company in the Hive could leverage that same data collection for some purpose that they need. How do you bridge that gap to like avoid duplication of effort and share information in a reasonable and actionable way? That's number one. And number two, like, man, Garett, you went to school for this stuff. Many people have not. And so the question is, how do you create that workforce of tomorrow that can handle all of this stuff? I mean, these are very, very deep questions that we're seeing, but from where you guys sit, what are you seeing in terms of like the technology and the AI with the drones, with the robots, whether at the Hive in North Dakota or just general, look, I know you guys are working with Norway, as you guys look around, where do you see the most beneficial uses for AI on autonomous vehicles today?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you made a good point about, everyone's figured out how to collect the data, and then you have hordes and hordes of data, and you think, okay, what am I going to do with all this data? Or there's a bottleneck there of processing the data. It costs money to get it from the cloud, process in the cloud, or potentially, like Garett said, process it on a local machine or like an edge device. I think now we're at the point where for like oil and gas, or for just like object detection in any context with a drone, being able to process on the fly real-time data as we're flying and identify anomalies in real time to then maybe control the flight plan, right? So let's say that we fly around this perimeter, let's say it's in oil and gas or any industry really, and we flag some anomaly of there's some discoloration, there's something to inspect more. That might then create our flight plan at a more thorough level to then go inspect and get the specific data that some experts need down the line to analyze and give feedback back into the loop. And maybe then it goes and does another, automated, flight. That could be a fixed wing aircraft for 10 hours, where instead of collecting everything, it's really going from problem to problem and getting a better perspective. And like you said, like, how do we leverage that between different companies in the Hive? We're already kind of doing that naturally, where we get companies that are pretty comfortable letting us develop something, partner with them, where we have kind of we have a stake in the game, in that we're building these things not just for them, and they know that, and they know, like, whether it's us putting priority on their project or something else, there's kind of a give and take there. So we'll develop something for an oil and gas partner, and they know, like, okay, this is something we developed. We then can move very quick and not recreate the wheel for other potential partners that we have for totally different verticals that don't overlap. And so that's great, because I do think, we're not trying to recreate the wheel. We're not trying to create AI from scratch. We are trying to get, what's the best ROI for, the time put into it and the effort or cost, and what's the output. And that's kind of how we look at everything.
No, I love that. I mean, instead of a bird's eye view, you guys have the bee's eye view, of like what's going on with all the companies you work with. So that gives you a really interesting, I think, perspective to look around and say, all right, there's some commonalities here. We can build to that, or we can help with those problems. So Garett, I'm going to go to you. Johnny's, just described what everybody's talking about, like edge, right? Edge compute, like edge AI. That's just the other buzzword that's going around, I think. What's the advantage of, Johnny alluded to it, in the oil and gas world? With edge AI, you can see in real time, okay, here's my problem over here. I can focus my next flight on that. I don't need to fly the entire oil field because I did the one pass and I found the one problem. and now I can go really inspect that one problem. How else do you see edge AI on things like drones or autonomous robots helping, just to say hypothetically, in other areas
I think
besides that inspection market?
I think the biggest area is not even from like a convenience point, it's like a security point. Uh, I've found out that working with the oil and gas industry, they are very, very particular about all of their data and what happens with it and where it goes and where it's stored.
Yeah.
And they're not very friendly when it comes to the cloud. So when it comes to things being stored on a device and being processed on a device, they like that a lot better than anything else, which I kind of like myself too. We can get into that more, but that's what I see. Um, yeah.
Okay, so it's more like that kind of, besides the real time actionable insights, it's that ability to kind of, let's say, containerize
Mhm.
that data, and also have smaller AI models, like distilled models that are very specific to an organization. Very, very cool. So from the client perspective, like, what feedback are you guys getting? Like, are people loving this? How has this changed the game for them?
Yeah, I can take that.
Um,
Go ahead.
you can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, people can't get enough of it, to be honest. Like after we do any type of proof of concept or just start kind of showing the what ifs. And what's cool, Don, is that, whether or not you have oil and gas experience or, some random vertical, like, you could see it as like, all right, the knowledge and experience that you have with the Air Force and everything, like, is such a superpower that you have to see other industries and see problems and think that's no different than how we solved it for beyond line of sight. But
Right,
it's
right.
totally unrelated. And so you being able to suggest, like, what if we looked at it slightly different? Because it's like data, sensors, actions, and then coming up with just a very easy to follow, like, what if, to see, like, all right, what would it take to build this very siloed solution. And what's cool is that, these things now, with computers being smaller, more powerful, they can go on the drone, they can go on whatever's flying, and potentially process all of it on the drone itself. And so, unless you capture the drone, which at that point you got bigger problems, if it crashes or something, the data
Yeah.
doesn't leave the drone. So all those insights might be processed on the drone, but it's only sharing data when there's a flag. So it might not give anything proprietary away, but it might text you, Don, and say, here's a photo of this thing, without the whole context of it. That's not something they'd be uncomfortable with going over text, but you just got right to the answer, and everything
Yeah.
else stayed on the drone, which they'd be more comfortable with, for just data in general.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back to Garrett, since Garrett, you were piping up about that and why you think that's important from a kind of a security standpoint, I think.
Yeah. That was like, I guess another thing I wanted to get on that is we talked about like small AI models. Is a lot of these like models they come out, they're massive and they have like a lot, very like broad, can be used for a lot of different things, but you can get something that's very, very small when you talk like parameters, like in the hundreds of millions, which is pretty small when you talk about trillion parameters and a few billion. You can get a specific use case built that is under 100 million parameters, which isn't that large. And it does its job very, very well. It does that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things really, really well. You can't
Yeah.
ask it a question that's very broad, but you can get what you need out of it. And it being that small can be ran on something that is small. So like a small Jetson Nano, or even like a Raspberry Pi at some point, if you add some compute to it, uh, that kind of solves the use case of the oil and gas industry, um, doing edge computing on like
Okay.
with something hooked up to a camera.
All right. Excellent. Well, look, at some point, just like using your phone, right? Everyone's going to be doing what you just said. They're not quite there yet. You guys are kind of at the leading edge of it. So my question is, what are the kind of limiting factors right now? In other words, why isn't this completely ubiquitous everywhere? And so what are like some of those challenges that you're seeing right now in terms of drones and robots and this, kind of smarter AI models, on board, and, that edge compute?
I would say that like the technology is really close to being there and it does what we want it to very well. The problem is like adoption and someone wanting to take that risk of like, yeah, let's get some AI into something that's very critical because something went wrong, like may not turn out well. Um, but the technology is there and it looks really good and people are always happy with it. But it's like the hump that's over gets, this is something really new. Like, I don't know if I want to take this risk on this, but uh, that's kind of the hump that we have to get over. It's just like, it's such a new thing that people are a little like scared of it. Like we talked about like Claudebot making its own social media, all that stuff. Like it is a very, how do I describe it? Overwhelming thing. I can completely understand that. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that kind of brings us a little bit full circle back to almost like the beginning, right? Where we were talking about, LLMs, right? Large language models, and how everybody's using them. There's platforms like Claude that we mentioned and things like that. People are using those. My question to you is, you have to subscribe to that. You also mentioned this open source, kind of ecosystem that's being built around AI. When you think about open source, what does that mean like for the work you guys are doing, right? Because you're talking about smaller models, you're talking about some, let's call it bespoke systems where that you're building more custom solutions. Where do these open tools work really great, and where do you wind up ending more custom solutions?
Uh, so they work really great. Like when we talked about doing the edge stuff. But the open ones, I really enjoy them just because it's a peace of mind on my end when I'm working with someone else's data, something like they gave me. I
Yeah.
know that I'm not putting myself at a security risk sending that stuff to the cloud. Uh, so that's why I like open source, and also I can go in and change and fine tune and like make it exactly how I want it rather using a cloud model. I just get their key, I use it, and it does very well. But again, it's sending information back and forth that I would imagine someone that we're working with doesn't want being sent anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But also when it comes to the open source ones, they are very good and they make very big ones, they make very small ones, but they're always a half a step. The best ones are always half a step, maybe a step behind the cloud model providers, which is okay if you like know what you're doing, you know how to ask the right questions and get to the right answer from your LLM. Don't really see a problem with it, but someone that's just getting into it may. Yeah, that's what kind of my perspective on that.
All right, cool. Johnny, did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think Garrett said it spot on. The biggest hurdle is convincing maybe a legacy-minded IT department in any company that we're talking to about, no, they most likely don't have an AI policy done. They most likely have some experience, but is it worth the risk for them to completely change that? That just shuffles a lot of things. People initially think, oh, this is going to automate my job. Most of the time, that's not what we're talking about. The ones that we can sit down with and say, hey, look, here's this Mac Mini. That just seems to be one that like people are comfortable because they have a MacBook or they have an iPhone. So we start with the Mac Mini. It has the capability to run exactly what they need. We can show, okay, this is disabled from Wi-Fi. This doesn't have Ethernet connection. Here is this basically instruction manual, which is like the brain of this little LLM. They can see us and show that this is not leaving this computer. Okay, then they're way more comfortable. Let's start there. Let's create a problem set that we're going to run some SLM, LLM, just a small learning model with a small amount of data that they're comfortable with. And we're fine even creating the data for them just to show. And, with our SLM, we'll basically run it. And then they're way more comfortable with whatever we do after that because they can see, all right, they can take a risk, not really a risk because it's in an isolated, siloed environment that is it's not going to talk to the internet. And so we can try things, we can get creative in there, and they know like before their sign off, potentially it will never hit the internet. So we can make, we can generate insights and learning locally, and they could physically see it on their desk at their IT, and it does not leave their premise. So an IT policy director or whoever's head of their, IT security is very comfortable with us doing that exact kind of proof of concept. And then they start to learn and Google and realize, wow, this is just like an Excel spreadsheet file that never talks to the internet. Not too worried about what data they're putting in and out of it, but then they start to see the value of it and think, let's give this a chance. Let's move this forward. And I really like that model because you just know, like, if we're not talking to the internet, it changes the entire paradigm of how we're communicating with these companies.
Yeah, look, I've leveraged AI, right, in what I do, and you do have to tell it, like, do not use external sources, because sometimes it'll pull things you're like, what? And then sometimes, as we all know, it will hallucinate, and that's never good for anybody. So what we're talking about here, SLM, small language model, kind of this locally hosted AI, if you will, piggybacking off of maybe some of that open source coding and things that you see out there, but like honing it and really customizing it for specific groups. Are you seeing more, like, as we look now to what's next in the future, are you seeing people kind of using more hybrid models where they want to have the ability to, access an LLM or some kind of an open source AI, but they also want to have their own, like, small language model or customized AI for in-house?
It's exactly that. You start with the isolated model that is the uncloud. It's not the cloud. And then in between that, there's a bridge between taking information that you then feel comfortable with, sources, if you will, from the internet, pulling that maybe into your local uncloud. And then there's a mix, like you said, a hybrid of, there are tools in the cloud that will be in the cloud that are maybe only accessible in the cloud. I think from a personal like enabler, the Claudebot example, like, part of it scares people. The other part of that, like, I'll give maybe a more relatable example. Like, okay, so Don, you go and have a Claudebot and you go find the best SEO, like the GOAT of SEO. And you say, all right, consume everything that person's ever posted. And then you say, become that and teach me that with the context of your industry. And now you have an agent, potentially, I mean, it really doesn't matter what you call it, that is your SEO. That's the Don bot for SEO. I mean, which will send you the Don bot, but that's very powerful. And you're not putting yourself at risk. It's like you now have the most senior expert in this topic that is at your disposal to, via text message, maybe run your SEO. I apologize for whoever's your SEO person, but those are examples of, like, that's a really powerful way of, that's cloud-based. That's kind of that. Some of that mixed with hybrid down into, big enterprise. Those are scary decisions initially that become very comfortable. I think the biggest thing now is, after working in, like, companies like Target Corporate, Samsung, mega enterprise, like the enterprise, they will have a hard time making a standard decision around AI with so many employees, so many technical experts, so many competing opinions, so many people that maybe are comfortable that they've been in a job for 20 years and there's really no upside of embracing this new AI. And so small, nimble companies like ours can move at the speed of light. We can make a decision on if we use a tool or not based on all three of us vetting it. They won't be able to move at that pace. So David and Goliath can now compete, in my opinion, in any industry because of that change.
Yeah, and the Buffalo3. So, as I'm listening to you, the Dawn bot, that's like agentic AI, right? It, like, takes something that's out there, someone mimics it, like, starts doing, kind of its own thing in that model, if you will. I'm probably mixing maybe some terms there that are terms of art in the AI world. But Garett, I want to talk to you for a second because, physical AI, right? We haven't really talked about that much. All right, we're talking more about, like, LLMs now, agentic AI. When you think about physical AI, that was, I'd say, one of the biggest things that was maybe up and coming at CES, right? This idea that you can train AI in a robot, in a drone, to not just, like, consume data and make suggestions or identify things, like all the examples we've been talking about so far, but to actually now move the robot or have the robot make a decision, which, when you think about where we are in the drone industry with beyond visual line of sight, detect and avoid, all of these things, electronic warfare on the battlefield, how do I, how do I avoid something, or how do I maybe offensively do something? And, this idea of physical AI, do you see like this being just accelerating in the next 12 to 24 months?
12 to 24 months, maybe. I would definitely say like 3-5 years. It's just the concept when you say physical AI, I know there's like you have drones, but you can also have like humanoid things. The
Yes.
concept of like getting like phalanges to move like this and that, like that's very like hard. What I found out, like that hard concept, there's companies that have like found a way to not make fingers and still like grab things fairly well.
Yeah.
I think the possibilities are pretty endless when that finally comes around. Like even for, let's not say like warfare, but manufacturing. There's
Yeah.
already companies like, I mean, in China, and then maybe like Tesla coming up here soon, where the factories will have the lights off, cars rolling down the line, there's robots doing everything, which is awesome and also extremely terrifying a little bit.
Yeah.
But I like physical AI.
So you're giving it years. I think it's interesting. I mean, we dedicated our full crew to AI, and last month, and last month it was robotics. And we actually had a company that bridged both worlds, called Zella Robotics out of Japan. They've made a software that actually has this like, kind of touch and feel, haptic, kind of focus to it, where, they had a demo where the robot hand could pick up a little tiny origami paper, right? Like dove or something, or swan, and not crush it, because it could, right, in a way, sense it robotic. Like, there's just really cool stuff happening. I don't know. I'm usually a glass half empty kind of person, but I feel like it's going to come sooner than we realize. Just walking around that floor at CES, seeing companies like Zella Robotics, I think it's going to, and the way just technology keeps leaping forward at an unprecedented velocity, I feel like we're just going to see some of these things sooner versus later. But look, guys, this is crazy. I love talking to you. Our time is almost over. We've got like 2 minutes left. And what I want to make sure that we do is give you each a second to, kind of close us out. Anything we missed, what you want people to know about, whether it's Buffalo3 or the Hive, AI and data, all the work you're doing. So I'm going to go first to you, Johnny, and then we'll end with Garett. And as part of that, if you guys could please tell folks how they can reach you and learn more about any of your efforts. Johnny, you first.
Sure. Yeah, I think the 2026 is definitely going to be, different AI initiatives of how can we be smarter with less? How can we be more efficient from, intake forms like we're working on right now with Tom and Grand Sky, and there's a lot of overlap with our partners that are great. And so how can we make things more efficient? If it takes, a few days to fill out some form to go fly on a Grand Sky, like how do we make that more interactive, better experience, and maybe take a half hour for you, Don, to get your aircraft ready to go. I think that's kind of our focus for 2026 is how do we just, do, the work of 1,000 people in a team in a fun way that's just the few of us. That's what we're focused on. And if anyone wants to get a hold of me, my Hive email is jryan@hivegf.com or johnny@buffalo3.ai. And I'll pass that to Garett.
Awesome. Garett?
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to end on is like how you can get into all this and start learning about it. I like to say I went to school for it, but university curriculum cannot keep up with the pace of how fast all of this accelerates and how fast it accelerates. So really, if you want to get into it, like all you have to do is just dive in, just get right into it. It's like make a ChatGPT account, learn about that, learn how it works, talk to it, get that together. And then like really all you have to do is ask it, like, if I want to like be considered an expert in artificial intelligence or call myself that, like, what do I need to learn? How do I need to learn it? What do I need to download onto my computer without like putting myself at risk? that's really all it takes, like getting online, learning about all this stuff and just playing with it with your hands and do it yourself, because that's like the best way you can do it, in my opinion. That's kind of what I wanted to close on. If you want to reach out and talk to me more about it, you can reach out to me at Garett, Garett at Buffalo3.ai or Elwood@hivegf.com.
I love that. I think that's a great closing comment to make for, the people out there really wanting to do this. And I actually sat through a talk this week about that, where everybody on the stage at Geo Week was, uniformly saying, sorry guys, but higher education just, it can't keep up right now, at least in this space. And same with, those geospatial technologies, which bridge everything you guys are doing, talking about, because oil and gas is just one of the verticals like where those are leveraged, right? So really, really interesting stuff. Thank you guys so much for your time. And of course, Johnny's saying go USA hockey, playing, was it Sweden today?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So go USA. Go Grand Forks, go Hive, go Buffalo3. Thank you guys so much. And of course, Grand Sky for this amazing series they'll be putting on throughout the year. This is the first of a 4-part, so every quarter we'll have one. You guys kicked it off in perfect form, so appreciate you guys. And for everybody out there, thank you so much. We are out here.